Moving on to some other matters, the committee's just received correspondence from the Attorney-General making an application for public interest immunity, and it hasn't considered it yet, and that's a matter for the committee, and I'll leave the committee to resolve that at the first opportunity. But it has only come in literally as we're sitting down to open up questions, and I did have questions on the matter it relates to, which is broadly the dual caravan incident. So could you just clarify for my benefit, given we've only just received the correspondence, what can we ask questions about, or what can you answer questions about relating to the dual caravan incident, and what can you not?
Thank you, Senator. I acknowledge we will be asked questions today regarding Operation Kissinger. Deputy Commissioner Barrett will provide some answers, but will not provide information that risks an ongoing investigation. We have cited the Minister's claim of public interest immunity on the basis of prejudice to the security and defence of the Commonwealth and prejudice to Commonwealth and state relations, so the AFP will not be in a position to answer questions that may traverse that claim. Given continued leaks that have significantly impacted on this operation, we will be very firm on what information we will not provide, and I'll refer any specific questions to Deputy Commissioner Barrett.
Okay. Just on that last reference to leaks, I mean, obviously nothing you've provided in a public forum to the Parliament is a leak. That's just information you put on the public record. Any leaks that have happened about this investigation must have come from people familiar with the investigation, which is not members of this committee, is it?
Well, no, but there are processes that you would appreciate that have been undertaken in regards to that.
I do appreciate that, and I do appreciate the damage that a leak can do, but answering a question from the Parliament about the conduct of the AFP is not a leak, and we have a task to do on behalf of taxpayers to ensure that the funds that you administer achieve the objectives that the government tasks you with, including keeping Australians safe, and this is a serious incident which Australians have interest in. So we do need to be able to ask questions, and I hope that in answering those questions you are guided by a principle of as much transparency as possible without jeopardising the investigation.
Of course, Senator.
Thank you. So I assume, based on that PAI letter, which, as I said, it's a matter for the committee to decide whether it accepts the claim or not, that questions about when or if the Prime Minister or ministers were briefed about this issue won't be answered by the AFP?
That's correct.
And can you explain why answering questions about that matter would be prejudicial to the investigation?
I'll just go back to the statement I just made, Senator.
I do understand at the last estimates why there was a lot of reluctance about that, but since that last estimates there's been significant developments in the case, including people being arrested in connection with the investigation, and the AFP and New South Wales Police have themselves put on the public record at a press conference a higher degree of information about the case, none of which was asked about in the previous round of estimates, and probably none of which I would have asked about in this estimates had it not been public. So why is it that the AFP can disclose so much in a public press conference along with New South Wales Police but not to a Senate committee?
I can see how it would be of interest to the committee. But for us it goes back to, again, maintaining independence of that investigation, and any problematic intersections within those investigations, they end up in court. And I've seen it before where some investigations are accidentally trampled on or interfered with, and then you're in a scenario where the real criminals that we're after, the organised crime principals, have claims for legal challenge. So we are quite sensitive to that, Senator, given the fact that the AFP, we don't take on, you know, a corner store thief or anyone like that. These are well-resourced, organised crime targets, know our system very well, have tried to work out some of our tactics. So we're often loath to actually go down this path with anything that's active. And for me to then disclose what is active, then that's intelligence that they will use against us in continually trying to outwit and outplay the AFP and law enforcement.
I certainly appreciate the seriousness of this investigation and the work that the AFP does, but one of the things you just said in your answer I find difficult to reconcile, which is that information that's provided could be used as part of a legal defence or to thwart an investigation or charges. I mean, you would know that evidence provided to the Senate and committee is protected by parliamentary privilege. It is inadmissible in a court hearing. It cannot be used as part of a defence.
I understand that. I think just reaffirming this is the Attorney General's claim.
Yes, I do note that. All right, well, I'll persist the best as I can to ask these questions, and we'll see how far we go. What can you tell me about Mr Sayed Akka, who's been publicly reported as the individual believed to be responsible for coordinating these attacks from offshore?
Senator, Deputy Commissioner Chrissy Barrett, Deputy Commissioner National Security. Perhaps what might be helpful is if I can go through the information that we are prepared to say publicly
yes, please.
And see where we land at the end of that. To start with, in Sydney on the 19th of March, both myself and Assistant Commissioner Stephen Nutt met with the Executive Council of Australian Jury, including Peter Wertheim and Alex Rivkin. We provided them with more context about this crime, given it is weighing very heavily on their community. We spoke about further opportunities, including how we as law enforcement can work together to tackle anti-Semitism. We continue to speak to a number of other Jewish organisations and also the Government Special Envoy for Anti-Semitism, and I just want to thank them all for their support during this time. I do note, Senator Patterson, that you did just acknowledge, and also earlier today, that we went into quite a lot of detail about the incident when we held the media conference on the 10th of March this year. I can say that we really pushed the limits in our public statement about what we were prepared to say publicly during that conference. And the reason we pushed the limits so hard was because we knew how important it was to address multiple audiences, so particularly and including the Jewish community who have been living in fear. That was the first and the last time that the AFP has publicly provided any operational information in relation to the operation. So I don't intend to provide anything further today outside of what has already been said publicly. And that's because this, of course, is an ongoing investigation. There are some key pieces of information that I can reaffirm today that perhaps would be helpful. So I can reaffirm that within hours of the caravan being found, any perceived threat was mitigated and the investigation was referred to the New South Wales Joint Counter-Terrorism Team. I can confirm almost immediately that our experienced investigators believed that the caravan was a fabricated terrorism plot. This was because of information that we already had, how easily the caravan was found, how visible the explosives were, and also that there was no detonator that was located. So the caravan was never going to cause a mass casualty event. I do want to say that the JCTT on multiple occasions, up to the Joint Management Committee, which is Assistant Commissioner level, discussed providing information to the public as early as we possibly could, noting the current environment. However, during our investigations, we did continue to receive tip-offs about other terror plots related to this matter, and I think you can understand that we do have to treat those at their highest out of an abundance of caution. In terms of motive, we allege that a person offshore, so a suspected criminal that is facing serious charges here in Australia, used local criminals to leverage the ongoing social cohesion concerns in this country. We allege this person paid local criminals to carry out anti-Semitic graffiti and vandalism for weeks whilst planning the caravan plot. And we know that this was to create absolute fear and anxiety in the Jewish community to get the attention from law enforcement. In exchange for providing information of an imminent threat, they wanted to return to Australia without being sent straight to jail. As I said during the media conference, regardless of the motivation of those responsible for this fake plot, this has had an absolutely chilling effect on the Jewish community, and this twisted, self-serving criminality, no doubt, has terrified and terrorised Jewish Australians. what organised crime has done to the Jewish community is reprehensible. I said that on the day at the media conference. And there was also unwarranted suspicion directed at other communities as well, which is also reprehensible. And I do want to say that using anti-Semitism or deploying anti-Semitic methods to get a deal with the Commonwealth will not work, and it is really despicable. In this case, it's backfired on this individual, and today I call out this reprehensible plot for what it is: hateful, evil, offensive and weaponising anti-Semitism. And I just want to finally say that this investigation was being progressed by the JCTT as a covert investigation until it was publicly disclosed by the Daily Tally on the 29th of January. That disclosure has had a significant detrimental impact on our ability to use our full suite of covert strategies and investigative capabilities to bring those responsible to justice. With every media article that's continued to draw this investigation out in the public domain, our members have had to quickly pivot and adapt to their investigative strategies. Now, I spent time with our investigators in Sydney last week, and to say that they're very frustrated doesn't quite capture the mood amongst them. So I do want to take this opportunity to recognise how hard they've been working and what a great job they've done under such challenging circumstances.
Thank you. I appreciate that frustration on behalf of the team working on this. It would be very frustrating to have it disrupted in the way that it was. Given that, what investigation has taken place into the source of the leaks or the origin of the leaks would have to be someone who was familiar with, or probably even part of, the investigation?
Yes, so I can confirm that we have referred that to the appropriate agencies for investigation.
What's the appropriate agency in this instance? I don't know.
There are a number of available options, and that there has been a number of referrals. I won't confirm which agencies due to sort of restrictions around that, but I can also confirm that following the first leak, the Joint Management Committee agencies, so the 4 agencies of the JCTT, also agreed to refer the leak to their own professional standards integrity areas within their relevant agencies as well.
Okay. I have some more questions about Mr Acker, which I'll persist with, and we'll see how we go, see what you can answer. But in particular, I'm interested in the confidence that the AFP had that there was no element of anti-Semitic motivation in his conduct or alleged conduct. How did you form that view, and do you still stand by that assessment that there was no element of anti-Semitism in his motivation?
So again, I'll take you back to the start of my statement that I'm only willing to make comments that I've already publicly made. I was asked a generic question in the media conference around that, so not specific to the name you're referring to. And what I would say is we had ongoing assessment of our target, our suspect, throughout the investigation and continuing, and that allows us to say with confidence what his motivation was. Because
you would be aware there has been media reporting on the 15th of March in the Weekend Australian going through his social media accounts and finding what is characterised by the Australian as vile anti-Semitic slurs for years, including praise for Hitler, questioned the existence of the Holocaust, said Zionists were the root of terrorism, and claimed that 9/11 was an inside job to start a Muslim massacre process. Now, I'm not suggesting this person is not also an organised criminal and might not have also been motivated by a negotiation for reducing his criminal sentences. But given those public statements allegedly made by this person, how can you rule out an element of his motivation also being anti-Semitism?
So I'll probably take you back to the language I used earlier to say that anti-Semitism was definitely used and deployed as part of the methods, and we know what we know is that that was taking advantage of the very febrile social cohesion environment in this country at the moment. So I guess if you were thinking that you're an organised criminal, organised crime criminal, and you want something really powerful to leverage with law enforcement in order to get what is a pretty significant ask in terms of what he was asking for, using the current environment and the anti-Semitism issues in this country, gave him the biggest, or it's the quickest way at the moment to get law enforcement and political attention. I can't go into the details of how and why any further than I already have, other than to say, as I said, we were assessing very closely his motives. I can't tell you how we were doing that, but with confidence can say that that was the motivation.
Yeah, and I certainly understand the logic of the AFP's view that this is primarily about negotiating a lighter sentence. You would have good reason to make an assessment like that. I don't question it. But my impression when I heard you and the New South Wales Police at that press conference, when you said this wasn't prejudice motivated, it wasn't about anti-Semitism, it was weaponisation or opportunistic taking advantage of anti-Semitism, that the people or person involved were not anti-Semites and had not expressed extensive anti-Semitism on the public record. But it seems to me this person has, and so I'm interested in how you can have such a high level of confidence that, as well as being an organised criminal seeking to negotiate a lighter sentence, he wasn't also an anti-Semite, completely indifferent to the damage that or maybe even willful about the damage he was doing to the Jewish community.
Yeah, so again, I take you back to the language I've already used. We did say at the media conference that this was using anti-Semitism to elicit a desired response from law enforcement. But I take you back to we're confident in terms of what his motive was. Yes, as I've already agreed, it's taking advantage of and using anti-Semitism, but we are confident of the motive, and I can't go into why we are as confident as we are, but we are.
I understand that. Okay. So this incident, this caravan was discovered on the 19th of January. Commissioner, 2 days later, on the 21st, you issued your public statement, which didn't mention the caravan, but did talk about whether paid actors were carrying out anti-Semitic attacks using funding from overseas, and you speculated about possible foreign actors. Was that statement a reference to this investigation?
Are you talking about my
your 21 January statement
January, on anti-Semitism?
I think there was a statement on the 21st, a public statement about foreign actors being potentially behind some of these attacks.
Yeah, I mean, I made it known in that statement that we were looking at, we're going to leave no stone unturned, and that's why we were looking at the overseas component, given the fact that we'd identified, organised crime, an organised crime element, and through some really clever intelligence that we were able to access and then understand at a deeper level that perhaps these are not just randomly created incidents, but we're also able to understand from our overseas partners, and this is why the AFP's international network is so important to our country, and it is a bit of the jewel in the crown for us. We were able to go offshore to some of our partners who were able to give us some intelligence dating back pre-October 7, well and truly, and paint a picture of previous efforts by organised crime to undertake these kinds of activities. So for us, we weren't ruling out, anything, and we were also trying to, this is probably more police talk, but get in behind what was really happening and really try and understand at a deeper level why is this happening and who's actually behind it and how is it being coordinated. It's a strategy that we're relentless when it comes to seeking the truth and stopping what I would call human suffering. Everyone has suffered throughout this period. And, our officers were very tenacious, and we've taken quite a number of calculated risks, even with some of the countries we're travelling in right now.
Okay. Senator Patterson, I have to share the course.
Thank you. Can I just clarify this point? Because just for the...
We will come back to it.
I understand, But what I'm trying to understand, Commissioner, was whether or not the 21 January statement was connected to the 19 January discovery, or was it completely independent and unrelated to that?
I think it was all of it's related, the whole picture.
Right. Okay.
And that's not just Sydney-based, it's the whole country we were looking at.
Right. Okay.
Thanks.
Commissioner Kershaw, I just want to return to that where I left off before with this question of your statement on 21 January about possible foreign actors. Now that police have a suspect in relation to the Dural caravan incident and have made arrests in relation to other related incidents, there appears to be a network. Is that the only possible foreign actor you are still investigating, or are there other possible foreign actors with other incidents that you're investigating?
I sort of would rather not go into detail, but broadly, we are working with international partners.
Yep. So are you able, on the basis of your understanding of these incidents, to rule out a foreign government or a transnational terrorist organisation being among the foreign actors involved in any other anti-Semitic attacks?
I mean, what I would say is we will go down every avenue of inquiry.
I don't doubt that, but significant anxiety has arisen about the possibility that this is a foreign government or a transnational terrorist organisation, and in this instance it doesn't appear to be either, based on the facts as we understand them at the moment. So if there were other leads that you were following that were connected to foreign governments or transnational terrorist organisations, that would be good to know. But if you're able to rule it out, that would be an enormous relief to the community as well.
I think we have to be really careful because of the claim. I think I'm going to be, I don't want to traverse the PII claim.
Yeah, I'm not interested in asking you to do that.
I'm trying to help out, but I just don't want to go down that way.
Right. So, unfortunately, that means for the community, particularly the Jewish community, but not only the Jewish community, that this remains kind of hanging in the air, this possibility, and can't be dismissed.
Well, I think we've been engaging with the community about reassurance and the fact that we've got this. That's a really strong message. I don't know if you wanted to add to that, Deputy.
Yeah, look, and I might pass to Assistant Commissioner Stephen Nutt. He's been having extensive and ongoing engagement across the Jewish community and has been providing them with a fair amount of detail in relation to some of our investigations.
Senator, yes, Stephen Nutt, the Assistant Commissioner for Counter-Terrorism and Special Investigations. As Deputy Commissioner has already mentioned, we've had a very deliberate engagement with the Jewish community and other communities who have been impacted as a result of the scale of anti-Semitism that we have seen in Australia, and also in relation to recent events. And we're very mindful around providing where we see involvement of organised crime versus state actor elements. Our observations, as we've described thus far, is that it's around organised crime elements. And that's as far as I'll go.
Great. So I'm interpreting from that you're not currently investigating state actors.
In terms of what we're talking about in the anti-Semitic aspects, we are not concerned about the involvement in state actors based on what we've seen. But as the Commissioner rightly mentioned, is that it's always an open question.
Sure.
And we'll continue to do our due diligence on
Sure, and I promise you, if some new lead emerges or some new facts emerge that does subsequently say that there was a foreign actor, I won't hold you to account for not knowing that in advance. I'm just asking on your current state of knowledge, given the anxiety, and I recognise the engagement that you've been doing in the community, and I've heard about it, and I know it is appreciated, particularly at that communal organisational level, but this is a much broader community who are watching this very anxiously and closely. So that's comforting. Can you say the same about international terror organisations?
I can say the same about international terrorist organisation based on our current understanding. That's
very welcome, and as I said, I won't hold you to that if the facts change or new evidence emerges. That would be not reasonable.